friends. I'm Jonathan Pishner with Apex Counseling, and we are coming to you with our series on suicide prevention. And today, what we are going to talk about is how you, as the non-clinician, can help someone who is struggling. Many people know someone that's struggling with the idea of potentially hurting or killing themselves. Sometimes we don't always know, but hopefully you'll catch our video on warning signs, and that can help you know if it's right to reach out to a person, maybe check in on them, see how they're doing. But in case you missed this part of that video, basically, if you think there's a reason that they could be thinking of hurting themselves, you should probably check on them. But here is how you can be helpful to that person, because I, as the clinician, help people in a certain way. The non-clinician loved ones are just as important in different ways. If one side or the other isn't doing their job, there's still a pretty big chance that there's going to be a problem. If both the loved ones and the clinician are doing their job, man, it really sets up a lot of support, and it's very easy, well, maybe not easy, but much easier for people to choose to keep going and get the help. So the first thing I always want to point out to people is if you think somebody could be potentially considering hurting themselves, it's okay to ask, because somewhere along the line we came up with this cultural myth that if we ask about it, that somehow makes people more likely to do it, as if somebody who's in intense emotional pain, as if maybe they haven't thought about it, and if we say, hey, just to check, are you thinking about hurting or killing yourself? Like that's somehow going to put the idea in their head, and they're going to be like, oh man, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. That's a myth. That doesn't happen. Or at least as far as we can tell, it doesn't happen. The most recent and relevant research from National Institute of Mental Health and a couple of others show that as far as we can tell, if you ask people, it's likely to produce the opposite response. If you care enough to broach a culturally uncomfortable subject with them, a lot of times that invites them to open up more and to maybe talk about it and to tell you if maybe that's a thing that they're experiencing. So one of the first ways you can be helpful is if you think maybe those thoughts are going through somebody's head, just check, just ask. You're not going to make it more likely for them to hurt themselves. On top of that, one of the best things that you can do is, if they are talking to you about stuff, doing your best to understand. If you caught our first video on this, anytime somebody is experiencing suicidal thoughts, or maybe even they've gone so far as to have a plan, that's a signal that they're in intense emotional pain. And sometimes it's hard for us to understand other people's emotional pain, because two people can go through the exact same event. One of them come out the other end traumatized, and the other come out the end perfectly fine. So sometimes it's difficult. It's not important that you actually understand that person's pain. The important thing is that you're trying to do so, because what that does, as you attempt to get into that person's worldview, it signals to them that you care. And that's one of the things that's really missing from a lot of people's understanding when they think about hurting or killing themselves. They're not sure other people care. So in doing that, in trying to understand and talking with that person, that's one of the most helpful things you can do. Showing love and empathy for them. Like I said, the loved ones of someone are just as important as the counselor. So like, inviting them to go out to pizza and a movie can actually be just as helpful as a therapy session. It's just helpful in different ways. Our stuff is all about like resolving the underlying issue, but we don't always get to resolve the immediate emotional pain with those little things that just take the edge off. Man, you as the loved one can do a lot just through showing love and empathy, through inviting them, and through showing you care. Because in our first video, we talked about that the things that cause suicide are that a person is in intense emotional pain, it's unendurable, and they think it's going to go on forever. But a lot of them who've completed suicide have a third thing going on, which is they think nobody gives a damn. They think nobody cares. And so at least you can take away that third one. If you can show that you care, then at least maybe they're still in pain, but they know someone cares. And one of the best things to help prevent suicide is the loved ones are in the front of their mind whenever they think about, okay, maybe today's the day, maybe I need to do it. A lot of times they'll think of, who is this going to hurt? And it can help them go on one more day. Maybe just getting through it one more day is all they need to turn it around. So never underestimate the amount of impact you can have just through love and empathy. And then, of course, number 4, encourage them to get help. Sometimes people try and just get through, but they don't want to seek professional help. If suicidal thoughts are happening, this is one of the few areas where sometimes I'll be like, well, okay, if you have a trauma, maybe it's not bothering you, maybe you can get by with it. This is one of the areas where I don't even say maybe you need help. It's if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts, you need professional assistance, because it can progress into plan and intent with unfortunate quickness. And once we get to plan and intent, then a person's really at a critical spot. So if you're the loved one and you know someone is in pain, you're trying to help them, but they're not also receiving professional services, really encouraging them to reach out to a counselor is very, very important. And unfortunately, sometimes people's first experience with a counselor is negative, maybe because it's like the wrong fit personality-wise, or wrong therapy style, or who knows what. Encouraging them to try again with a different counselor is oftentimes just as important. So that's one of your areas you can be helpful to, is continuing to encourage them to get professional assistance. And if you're showing love and empathy, you show how much you care, maybe that is the thing that, well, okay, I'll try this counseling gig one more time. So please, if you have a loved one who's experiencing suicidal thoughts, don't underestimate how important you can be. Ask them straight out about it. Just ask them, check in on it. Try to understand what they're going through. Even if you aren't able to understand, try. Just the effort helps. Showing love and empathy, taking them out to do stuff, being with them, encourage them to get help. And last one, keep following up. If you have the conversation once and then you drop it and you never ask about it again, in a way, that's kind of more of a signal that maybe a person doesn't care than they do. So follow up, check in with people. Emotional pain doesn't get erased in a day. So please don't underestimate how important you can be. You can do an awful lot to help people. So thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope this was helpful to somebody. I am Jonathan Pishner with Apex Counseling, and we will see you in the next video.